Well, let me share the PPT with you all. Although it's not, much decorative, however, I just attempted to present whatever there was in my heart and mind. And let me tell you that this PPT or whatever words, whatever ideas I'm going to share with you all people today, it's my personal interpretation, it's my personal analysis. And I didn't rely on Google much. It's rather I attempted to explore things on my own, as per my particular sense of apprehension. Well, getting back to the point now. So what does creativity mean to you? Like when we are talking about this particular topic, creativity. Let me ask you first of all that what exactly does creativity mean to you? You can simply drop your opinion in just a word or a couple of words in the chat box. So what does this particular word, creativity, mean to you as an individual, as a teacher, or just as a thinking entity? Yes, as I can receive aesthetic sense, okay. To put up one's areas, well, definitely, and as far as creativity is concerned, every one of us will have, our own sense of interpretation, and each one of us will have our own body of expression. Therefore, creativity for different individuals, I believe, has different roles to play in this typical practical world, or even in personal world as well. Well, so let me take you to the very origin. Let me take you to the very origin of creative literacy. How exactly, or how this entire phrase, in fact, came into being. Well, as far as the origin of creativity is concerned, as far as we can trace that particular initiation or the beginning or the inception of creative literacy, first of all, and first and foremost, we should attempt to understand and apprehend the the requirement of creative literacy. What was the basic necessity of creative literacy? So, you see, if you observe, then you will probably able to come to a conclusion or analyze that the very nature of necessity was the beginning of creative literacy. In fact, right in the beginning, like early Homo sapiens, they simply wanted to see and observe, analyze the tabulation of life, the machinery of life, the function of life, and that's where they came up with the idea of fire. Like if I'm talking about wild animals, wild animals were extremely afraid of this. What do you say, that red rose, as I heard the character use in that movie called The Jungle Book. Red rose he uses for the fire, or for fire. So wild animals or wild beasts were afraid of fire, not because it was destructive for them, but also because somewhere down the line, I believe, they didn't have any idea about the function of fire, which, let me tell you, which Homo sapiens or early humans, attempted to tap, attempted to analyze, attempted to apprehend, attempted to comprehend the entire functioning, the entire process, the working process of fire, and finally they got control over it. So of course, it was the nature of necessity, and once they came to understand this entire function of fire, they didn't only able to protect their life from the odd creatures, or like odd scenarios, or odd, I would say that odd subjects, but also somewhere down the line, it also is their process of survival. Well, moving on to the second topic, the cup of convenience. Of course, creative literacy can be also traced back to the cup of convenience, like early nomads, or like what you must say, that those primitive people, I would say, or nomads also we can use, or like those tribals, or there's a sophisticated word, by the way, for that, which is not coming right now in my head. So I would rather say early nomads. So early nomads, they basically carried their materials from one place to another place uh, uh, by either pulling or pushing right in the beginning. But later they realized that yes, by using something which could ease their process of working, they could their life could be rather convenient, more convenient probably. And there came the idea of wheel invention. There they invented this wheel, which turned their life completely convenient and flexible, and now they were easily capable, they were really efficient in carrying materials from one place to another place. So that was the scenario. Now, the third point is proximity to nature. Look, early inhabitants, or what to say that early men, early Homo sapiens, they fundamentally lived in the shade of nature. Unlike today's rat race world, where there is no time for even calling a friend and wishing him happy birthday. So they basically lived in the shade of nature. And therefore, they had better opportunity and a scope to have some sort of personal contemplation, personal brooding, which ultimately paved the way, paved a terrific way to creativity. So that was one aspect. Now, another point is organic teaching. You see, I would like to take you way back in the world of Gurukul method of teaching. When the students were taught, in the heart of nature, you see, and they were basically taught organically, practically. Although the mode of teaching was a little theoretical, however, people were given realistic examples, and they were taught in such a manner that they could easily connect and convince themselves that yes, whatever they were learning was of very practical use and advantage, which they could easily execute in their individual life. So that was the mode of teaching, organic mode of teaching, which was, of course, extremely creative. As Mr. Rabindranath Tagore also once quoted very remarkably, that if you really want creativity to flourish in the minds of students, let it be in the shade of nature. And when nature, plays its course, and when nature takes its course, things become really, things become really interesting and entertaining. And the more of learning, the more of observation, it takes a new height. So that was the perception of Mr. Tagore. Anyways, getting back, practical tasks to students. So back then in the Gurukul method of teaching, whatever students were basically taught, in the open class, in the shade of nature, they were normally asked or instructed to use them practically, or to encapsulate them, very organically. Say, suppose if a student was taught about horticulture, then a student had enough opportunity to apply or implement the same method in his farming. Reason being that most of the students, they were employed in lots of like organic activities like farming, or say suppose like treating the commoners. So another example is that, say suppose if there was a student who was taught about medicine, then he could have enough opportunity to implement the same idea when he would visit any nearby suburb and see any patient. Therefore, the entire mode of teaching way back then, it was quite, I would believe, practical, relatable, and relevant. And that's why I believe it was the origin of creative literacy. So that's all about origin. Now I'm gonna play a couple of videos to break this code of, a little, means what to say that, uniformity. Well, let me play some video meanwhile. In the meantime, there is a question for you all, distinguished people, gentlemen. If you can see it on the screen, what are the two elements from Gurukul teaching pattern you would like to pick out and apply in our current mode of education? So meanwhile, you can answer this question in the chat box. Well, so this downloads, yeah. Let me play a video.
The Gurukul system of education was the primary education system
Yeah, practical teaching, lots of answers, lots of opinions are popping up right here. Well, thank you very much for responding. Well, now here we go. Yes, so that's where I ended. So what was the basic motto? The fundamental motto was to nurture the individual experience, nurture the individual talent, interpretation, and not just, pulling everybody into that world of rat race, and people running after marks. It was not like that way back then. Okay. Learning from, okay, finally, thank you. So just the next slide. Well, so now we are going to talk about until this evolution of creative literacy. This is the transformation of creative teaching or creative learning, we must say, for that matter. Well, you see, as far as evolution is concerned, it was, it was very fundamental and natural. It was, I would say, gradual. It was consistent in some way or the other. Well, from wheels to planes, way back then, we had wheels to carry materials from one place to another place. Then we improvised them over and over again. We worked on, we operated on wheels, and finally, we got these planes. Well, still, even today, you see, when we are scientifically too much advanced, still the fundamental essence, the fundamental knowledge, the fundamental body, the fundamental mechanism is still same. That is will, the first invention. Remember that. Now, second point, from classes under trees to high-tech classes. Of course, when I'm talking about Gurukul system of education, it was open class. Like people normally, the acharyas, they normally organize classes under trees. But now the classes have moved to scientifically equipped classes, that we may say high-tech class, From pen to PowerPoint, of course, way back then, I remember my grandfather telling me one night, like whenever they went to appear in the examination and they had to draw anything, they normally ended up drawing their pockets and pants with the ink, because that was the only mode of writing. That was the means of writing. That ink, that was the material for writing. Well, now we have PowerPoint, as I'm demonstrating it before you. PowerPoint, just prepare a few decorative slides and your students will be able to absorb everything about the subject matter so effectively. If not organically, at least effectively. And now from teachers to robot, we are in the world of robots. You know, like the other day, again, I was teaching in some class, maybe in class 9, and there I came across the perception of Mr. Isaac Asimov, the terrific figure in the world of sci-fi writing, who proposed his idea, his imagination of robotic teaching in the coming future, which I believe is somehow or other or taking place, although very swiftly, slowly, gradually, meticulously, but yeah, it's taking place. So now from grass to Google. Way back then, centuries ago, students had to travel a long way in order to reach out to their acharyas. Now we are in the world of Google. You just type. We are just, one hand away. You just you type on Google and likes of ideas will come openly from all directions and on one particular subject matter. Well, so that is what I say is the evaluation of creative teaching, creative literacy today. We have evolved immensely, we have transformed immensely. However, the basic essence, the fundamental essence is same. You see, dear teachers, no matter how much we develop ourselves scientifically or for that matter technically, still the basic requirement will be always same. Say suppose we have got a car today. Still, if we have to go to Jamshedpur, I'll have to drive the car and I'll go to Jamshedpur. You see, I'll go to Jamshedpur. The car is just a medium. Similarly, whatever technology we are encapsulating in our mode of teaching, it is just a medium to express the materials, to express the subject matter. The technology itself is not education. Unfortunately, today, people are so much carried away by this new high-tech technology of teaching that they sometimes give very less significance to learning, the organic learning, I mean to say. Well, moving on. Now, there's a question for you again. What does a child is majorly deprived of in the new high-tech education system? Yes. I hope you are responsive. If you can drop your opinions in the chat box, I'd be more than glad. Experiencing with Guru, okay. Learning from the elements of nature, okay. Morality, yeah, that's the, as brother said, morality, yeah. That is the demand, that's the demand, which the students were 100% not deprived of in the Gurukul system of education, morality. You see, today we have advanced a lot in the world of technology, in the world of literacy, but unfortunately, somewhere down the line, we are lagging behind in implementing our education for the right purpose. Dear teachers, let me tell you, our creativity can help us design a bulb as well as a bomb. A bulb can glow someone's home, whereas a bomb, it can destroy the same home. Therefore, the correct use, the appropriate, the ethical implementation of our education is more demanding, I guess, is more required in today's education system. So what to ignite and what to ignore, that's all about the need of current education system. And more or less, I would say, it's the need of creativity as well. Empathy. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's a lovely word, empathy. Empathy, what exactly does it mean? It's about understanding someone. It's about sympathy and empathy. They are very close to each other. So empathy is just trying to experience someone's distress, someone's pain, someone's grief through your own sensibility, through your own experience. So that's what is called empathy, I believe. Well, moving on. Creative literacy in present education system, in educating system, where does it lie? What is the place of creative literacy in today's high-tech education system? Well, ambiguity in apprehending the motto itself. What is the basic motto of creative literacy? I believe there is too much, ambiguity. There is too much, what I would say that obscurity in understanding the very theme, the very motto of creative literacy. Creative literacy directly attempts to help a child, to help a learner apprehend something which is not obvious or which is not already available. Like whatever information is available in the book or is given by the teacher can be just a mode to explore what is not there, to explore what has not been explored yet pertaining to the subject matter. Say suppose if I'm looking at the bulb right now, I know that Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, lots of people contributed to the invention of this bulb. I know its basic function as well, but still, if it cannot drive my imagination, if it cannot drive my fancifulness, then I'm simply limited to information. I need to break the boundaries and just allow my sense to fly away in the world of imagination and think beyond what is already existing. That is the real motto of creative literacy. Or suppose creativity. Next, limitation to bookish demos. As I've already explained, like we are demonstrating a lot, but somewhere down the line, it's all about the projection of marks, nothing else. We are simply projecting marks. That's it. Normally, no time for opinion making. Where do you find time in today's education system for opinion making? No, I don't find, there is no void for opinion making. We are so much packed. We are so much, I would say that, means compact. We are so much, means how to say that. We are so much busy, we are so much engrossed, we are so much circumference confined with lots of works, with lots of activities, just trying to somehow or other finish the academic protocols, that we don't give enough space for opinion making to our children. You see, when we are talking about photosynthesis, when we are talking about, say suppose solar cooker, solar cooker will simply define the process and everything, until or unless the child attempts or the child tries to just design a solar cooker at his own home and use it and experience it practically. I believe the teaching of solar cooker is useless. We are teaching about rainwater harvesting until or unless the child implements the same sensitivity in his practical life, whether today or when he grows up properly. Our teaching is useless. Listen, learn, and lead. Today's teaching world is more about listening and learning. Where does this third word exist? Living. Living is more important. So what a child learns, what a child listens. Suppose if I'm talking about, a magnificent, an imagination-driven poem of Wordsworth, if I say that, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon my inward eye, the real bliss of solitude. These are the lines from Daffodils, a terrific poem composed by Wordsworth. So the students will simply, they will simply record and will try to produce in the examination paper. But let me tell you, my dear teachers, that the same poem, Daffodils, changed the life of Mr. Swami Vivekananda. When this poem was being elaborated in his college, he was also present in his class, and suddenly the professor mentioned one word called trance. Trance, this word, trance. Suddenly, the gentleman professor mentioned this word called trance. And this word was so sensitive, it happened to be so sensitive for him that it ultimately changed his entire life. He asked the professor, "What is it all about, sir? What is this trance?" So the professor replied, "Vivekanand, trance is an experience that comes out with pure feelings, that comes out of purity in heart." And that's where Mr. Professor directed Vivekananda towards his ultimate teacher, that was Mr. Ramakrishna Paramhans of Dakshineshwar. Well, now the last one, breezing books with abilities. We lack that. We lack in breezing books with resources, in breezing books with practical life. That's what we lack in today. Well, so there is a question, but I would not ask you a question, right now, because I have got so less time to elaborate so many things. So mostly questions will be asked at last. So miracle of creative literacy. What is the basic? What is the lasting impression? What is the revolutioning miracle? What is the revolutioning impact of creative literacy? On our today's learning minds. Let's see that. Number one, what does creative literacy do? It generates an interrogative approach to education. Of course, it teaches our students to ask questions, to question the existing perception. Say suppose if I talk about bliss, the student must ask me, what is this all about, sir? Even if I explain that, oh, child, it's all about the feeling of extreme delight, still, he should try and bring in some example from his real life. Or I should do that so that he can get that word very sensibly. So it's all about that interrogative approach to education. Number two, it tethers book to life. If I'm talking about Harappan civilization and I can't take my children simply to this excavation center of Sitagara to show them how exactly this process of excavation take place, I believe, we won't be able to reach the purpose of creative literacy. Therefore, it should connect books to real life. Number three, it pushes the routine mind to break the comfort walls. Creativity, it doesn't let you sit and sleep in a comfortable room. No, it always pushes you out of that. It always prompts you to think something beyond what is already existing right on the screen before you. Well, the next is it develops an investigative and critical thinking. Let me tell you, what is this critical thinking? When a learner does not just absorb the fact from one corner, say suppose if I explain anything to my child or my children and he simply accepts it, that's not critical thinking. The critical thinking is about analyzing the subject matter and allowing various opinions come in the mind from various directions. So critical thinking is all about not just accepting one fact about one particular subject, but also accepting so many other pervasive opinions about the same subject matter. Now, the last one is it turns learning into a living process. Of course, creative literacy, it always aims at turning learning into a living process. What you are learning, you should live it. You should not just limit it to books or your computers. You should live that. Well, what's the one factor, just a swift question to you all, kindly answer. What's the one factor of creative literacy you find extremely engaging? What is that? One element of creative literacy you find extremely engaging? Kindly answer first. Self-awareness. Okay. Fine. And now here we go. The last part of this workshop. Challenges to creative literacy. What are the basic challenges that lie today? What are the basic challenges that exist today to creative literacy? Number one, healthy articulation. As I have already mentioned it to you all people, that unless or until we learn how to articulate, how to encapsulate our creativity in the right direction for the betterment, for the upliftment of humanity and people and life around, the purpose will remain unfinished. Therefore, whatever creativity we have in our mind, we should always try to implement it for the better cause of humanity, for the people, for life, for the distress pervasive around us. So that is the healthy articulation, which is not there today. So that is one challenge to creative literacy. Number two, inaccessibility. Of course, there is too much, like, forget about creative literacy. There are thousands of corners in India where there is no access to education. Forget about creative literacy. Therefore, we should try and reach out to such spots And once education starts flourishing, only then it is possible that we can bring in the miracle, the magic box of creativity. Now, the third one, what is the today's demand of better education? I believe it is to find a balance between marks and creativity. Of course, marks are important, but not that much. I believe marks are important just to measure the preparation. I personally believe preparation is more significant. Preparation is more indispensable than examination. What ultimately matters is the preparation. Examination is simply a door to check our preparation. Therefore, we should lay more emphasis on the preparation. And that preparation is all about practical analysis of what we absorb in our everyday life. Well, a secure education, of course. A secure education, like pandemic, just scenarios like pandemic, Omicron, and all these uncertainties coming up one after another, they pose a peculiar threat. They pose a consistent threat to education. Therefore, unless our education will be persistent, it will be continuous, we cannot have any scope for creative literacy. And the last one, the most important, teachers, it's my personal analysis, and I would say discovery. I would like to believe iceberg theory. You see, just a second. You see, when I'm talking about this iceberg theory, suppose, I'm sure you all are well acquainted with the term iceberg. You see, normally what we happen to do, we happen to project what is already lying on the surface. But the real target of creative literacy is to project what is not easily visible or what is not clearly explicit on the surface, is to explore what is lying underneath the surface. So that is the real motto of creative literacy. I believe it should be implemented in our today's education system. Whether it is NEP or what, I don't know all these sophisticated terms of government. They promise a lot, but I believe these practical tools of education should be implemented. So the last question to you all: would you like to add iceberg method in your teaching toolkit? Would you like to add it in your just box of teaching? Only if you have apprehended the term. Okay. So finally, thank you very much. And if you would like to add this iceberg theory in your practical mode of teaching, I'd be more than delighted. And some dear teacher is entering the meeting now. Entering the workshop now. Well, thank you very much. I felt extremely delighted and want to say that rejoiced in presenting my interpretation and ideas, opinions on this creative literacy. Thank you very much for having me here and being here in the session. Well, with that, I would like to wind up this entire workshop. And the question link will be dropped in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother. Okay, so people thank a lot. Try to implement also something in your practical teaching. I'd be more than delighted.